Thank you for tuning into the Forefront Radio. I'm your host, Afio Levi Israel. Now, if you're interested in helping us promote our brand, please feel free to donate to our Cash App. Our Cash App is $ Afiel Levi. That's APHIELLEVI. And that'll go directly to the Forefront Radio so we can produce more incredible shows for you to listen to. Now, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download this free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you.
You are now listening to The Forefront Radio, where we discuss history, the Bible, the history of the Israelites, science, and other matters. Bring it out. The history of the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans as it relates to the Bible. Who were you prior to slavery? Who were you prior to colonization? These answers and more can be seen and heard as you listen to The Forefront Radio.
for listening to the Forefront Radio. I'm your host, Afiel Levi Israel. Welcome to the show. In this episode, we're going to talk about Black composers. We're going to talk about people of color in European art history and various things of that nature. What you just listened to was Chevalier de Saint-Georges. His music can be found all over YouTube, and he is considered the quote-unquote Black Mozart. His official name is Joseph Bolonge, Chevalier de Saint-Georges. He was born around December 25th, 1745, and died June the 12th, 1799. That was the classical composer that you just heard on the music that we played prior to the broadcast. This gentleman was a French classical composer. He was considered a virtuoso violinist, a conductor of the leading symphony orchestra in Paris, and a renowned champion fencer. So not only was he a musician, a virtuoso at that, he was also a fencer. What is a fencer? A fencer is a man that can fight with the sword. So what I did, I went and did a Google search on the term chevalier, and I looked up what was the definition of chevalier, and here's what I found. The definition of chevalier means a knight. A knight. So historically speaking, this man was a black knight, meaning he was a part of royalty. The term chevalier actually means a knight or a chivalrous man, or a member of a certain order of knighthood, or of the modern French orders such as the Legion of Honor. So not only was this man a virtuoso violinist, not only was this man a leader during the symphony orchestra in Paris, he was also a knight, meaning he was part of rulership. This is during the 1700s. This is a part of history that many people are not aware of. So, allegedly, he was born in the French colony of Guadeloupe. He was the son of Georges de Bolonge Saint-Georges, a wealthy married planter, and Anne Nanon, his wife, was a supposed African slave. When he was young, his father took him to France, where he was educated during the French Revolution. The younger Saint-Georges served as colonel of the Legion Saint-Georges, the first all-black regiment in Europe, fighting on the side of the Republic. Today, Chevalier de Saint-Georges is best remembered as the first known classical composer of African ancestry. He composed numerous string quartets and other instrumental pieces, as well as operas. So this is a part of history that many people are not aware of. When they talk about Black people, they make it seem as though we have no sort of history, no background, that we allegedly just came from the jungles of Africa, swinging from trees. When in reality, we have artists, fencers, violinists. This man was a knight, meaning he was a part of royalty. We had kings, we had princesses, we had people that were in the knighthood. We had all types of royalty within our blood. So when we talk about slavery, what people fail to realize is that we, as a nation of people, were actually prisoners of war. A prisoner of war is someone that actually had their own kingdom, their own establishment, their own sovereignty, their own rulership, their own designation throughout the world. They were world renowned. We come from kings, priests, artisans, musicians, poets, construction, what do they call them? The people that work in construction, I can't remember the name right now. Masonry, I believe it's called. But not the Freemasonry that people are so deluded on. I'm talking about actual masonry, like building, like architects. There you go. Architects, stuff like that. So I wanted to touch briefly on Chevalier de Saint-Georges because he's a perfect example of righteous Black nobility. This is rare because many people believe that there's no such thing as us having a history prior to slavery. So the interesting thing about it is that many people have stolen our image, stolen our likeness, stolen our records, and formulated it as their own. What do I mean by that? It's a term called iconoclasm. When you look up what iconoclasm is the deliberate destruction of images. So iconoclast, a person who attacks cherished beliefs or institutions, a critic, right? So what happened? During the Dark Ages, Black people were in power. During the time where the Renaissance happened, there was a slow progression of wars. There was the Spanish Inquisition that happened, and a time period where we were persecuted by the Roman Catholic system and forced into slavery. If you look back at some of the papal bulls that were established, it was the Catholic Church that actually instituted and put into papal law the act of placing our ancestors into servitude. So iconoclasm is the action of attacking or assertively rejecting cherished beliefs and institutions or established values and practices. The second definition, the rejection or destruction of religious images as heretical, the doctrine of iconoclasm. So what is this code for? This is code for whitewashing, where they deliberately attacked any image of Black people and slowly turned the images of religious worship to that of the Caucasian race. Iconoclasm is a social belief. Remember, it's a belief system, a social belief in the importance of the destruction of icons and other images of monuments, most frequently for religious and political reasons. So there are political reasons why the Catholic Church decided to take all the images of Black people and destroy it and turn it upside down on its head. The motivations for the practice have ranged from the imposition of monotheism and restoration of polytheism in ancient Egypt to the disposition of an autocratic regime and the consolidation of another in modern Egypt. Not every breaking of an image is an act of iconoclasm. So what does that mean? For example, they took Napoleon. He was one that took the image of the Sphinx and had his army blow off the noses to hide the fact that the rulers of ancient Egypt, which also the rulers of ancient Israel, were actually Black people. What did they do? They took images of Black people all throughout Asia, Europe, and Africa and shifted those to Caucasian images. Remember, this is the rejection or destruction of religious images as heretical. So, any image that portrayed Christ as Black, they rejected. Any image that portrayed the angels as Black, they rejected. Any image that portrayed Moses as Black, they rejected. Any image that portrayed Mother Mary or Miriam as Black, they rejected. So, it's pretty interesting because what they did was they took our images and flipped it on its head and started washing it, and now forcing the world basically to worship their image as God. This is strikingly what we must understand in the fact of the systematic psychological degradation that has happened to the society of man. The whole of the earth has inherited lies. They have inherited deceptions. So there's this article provided by medieval people of color where it talks about this subject, because you wouldn't want to be historically inaccurate. You want to make sure that you get all the facts that are involved. So we're going to read excerpts from this particular article. It says this: retroactive erasure, the Black Madonnas of Europe. One of the most baffling failures of logic in all of academia is the flagrant attachment to the unsupported claim that the black virgins of Europe, of which there are well over 300, are not black because they are black. For some reason, their inability to explain her dark complexion is combined with the adamant position that it must be explained. That, however, has not stopped most scholars on the subject of the Black Madonnas, asserting that whatever the reason for her skin color, it could not possibly be because the artist intended to paint her skin that color, or if they did, it must be for some other reason than because that was how she looked. So there was an image of a Black Madonna found in Tendere, Sicily, which is Italy, which dates very well past the 8th century and has Latin inscriptions literally saying, "I am black." Unfortunately, that does not seem to be a message that art historians want the common people to hear. The actual term is nigra sum sed formosa. Nigra sum sed formosa. I am black. There's very little academic interest in the supposed anomaly of Black Madonnas of Europe. So the interesting thing about this, folks, is this is a direct quote from the Song of Solomon, particularly chapter 1 and verse 5, where King Solomon states, "I am black but comely," which is where we get the modern term, "I am black but beautiful." But what did they do? What did they do? They saw these images, and instead of saying, "Oh, these images are actually the image of Maria or Miriam or Mother Mary," they flipped it on his head and said, no, that's just the Black Madonna. We don't know how something happened where it changed over time, it just got burnt, something happened, but she's not black. Check this out. It says, "The anomaly of the Black Madonnas of Europe until relatively recently. Most art historians, if they mentioned them at all, attributed her complexion to age, accumulation of smoke, and other environmental factors. In fact, the evidence shows that this is false. Despite the fact that no other portion of the painting of the statues had been affected by the same darkening, or why even the images were restored, copied, or repainted in subsequent centuries, the original brown or black skin color was painstakingly preserved." And this is by Shear, page 10 and page 16. Even analysis of relative age, possible smoke exposure, and darkness of skin tones debunk these assumptions. Many of these copies, and even copies of copies, are made from originals attributed to St. Luke and are said to have been drawn from life, i.e., they are true portraits of the Virgin Mary herself. So hold up, wait a minute. The Black Madonna is the image of Mary herself, and Mary is the mother of Jesus the Christ, or Yahushua HaMashiach, as some like to say. So the mother of Christ is found with dark brown skin, black faces, and hands. So not only was her face dark, but her hands were dark too. And miraculously, people say, "Oh, no. It wasn't because she was black. Oh, it was smoke. It was smoke that caused the complexion of the statue." Think about it. It's a statue. It's a statue. How can smoke cause a statue to become dark? But it only affects the hands and face? Why not the clothing? Why not the dress? Why not the shoes? Why not anything else? The ridiculousness of society trying to explain away the fact that the image of Christ's mother was actually black. Because if Christ's mother is black, that tells you that Christ, the Messiah, is black as well. A wide variety of images that have been attributed at some point, although some have been shown to have other origins more recently, to St. Luke can be viewed here. including ones that have been painted over and are literally whitened in the 18th and 19th centuries. For example, one of the factors that art historians have pointed to repeatedly as evidence that these images were not intended to be a black woman is that there is no mention of them in historical documents being described as black. However, there is no reason to suppose that the way she was perceived at the time these images were made, or for centuries afterwards, is the same as they were viewed retroactively, or that her skin color would have been seen as, quote, anomalous, end of quote, unlike the historians of this century. These texts describe only clothing and decoration, or mention the image of Our Lady without prevarication upon relative skin hue. So, what does that mean? That means they looked at the image, they described her clothing, but they didn't describe her features. They didn't talk about how her skin tone looked. In quite notable opposition to those who are adamant that these images do not suggest that the Virgin Mary was a dark-skinned woman, the 17th century scholar Gabriel de Valletta quotes the 13th century Saint Albert the Great. According to him, states this: "You ask, was the Virgin dark or fair? Albertus Magnus says that she was not simply dark, nor simply red-haired, nor just fair-haired. Mary has a blend of complexions, partaking of all of them, because a face partaking of all of them is a beautiful one. And yet this, says Albertus, we must admit, she was a little on the dark side. A little bit on the dark side. There are three reasons for thinking this. Firstly, by reason of complexion, since Jews tend to be dark and she was a Jewess. Secondly, by reason of witness, since St. Luke made the three pictures of her now at Rome, Loretta and Bologna, and these are brown complexioned. Thirdly, by reason of affinity, a son commonly takes after his mother and vice versa. Christ was dark." So we have religious artwork, a statue in particular, where they clearly state and try to disillusion you that she was a blend of colors. But in reality, she was, quote, a little on the dark side. No, she wasn't a little of the dark side. She was black. She was black. She was a dark-skinned woman. She was brown. Different shades of brown. And then they said there are three complexions for thinking this. Firstly, by reason of complexion, since Jews tend to be dark, and she was a Jewish. So hold on, what are the scholars saying? Because this is Shear and Vaz de Silva writing this. The scholars are saying that they know that Jesus's mother was actually black. You can't make this up. So you're telling me that all my life I went to church and there was an image portrayed that wasn't the actual image that's found over in Europe, over in Asia, over in Africa? The actual image of Christ's mother was portrayed as a dark-skinned woman, as black. But now, all of a sudden, she's partaking in all the colors, a blend of complexions. No. Let's not partake in the fact that she's black. Let us come up with lies. Let us disillusion the society to create an image where she wasn't, dare we say, dark skin or black. She was a blend of variations of complexions, all lies. It is also notable that according to Albertus, the dark skin of Christ is a well-known fact. Now we're reading, folks, historical information. I'm not even going and quoting the Bible. There's various scriptures that you can look at to substantiate this. Jesus' granddad, Solomon, King Solomon, Song of Solomon 1:5, I am black but comely. Job 30:30, where he says, my skin is black upon me. Revelation chapter 1, verse 14 and 15, where it says that Christ's feet is so dark, it looked like it burned in a furnace. other scriptures, such as Moses having a miracle where his hand turns white, and then all of a sudden it turns back to its original flesh, which was black. That's found in Exodus 4, verse 6. I'm not even reading the scriptures, but I'm giving you these as points of reference for you to go back and look for yourself. So now we see that these historians and art producers know for a fact, let me read this again. It says, the dark skin of Christ is well known as a fact and is used to demonstrate that by virtue of heredity, it follows that Mary herself would also be dark complexion. When this is contrasted with some of the more absurd claims passed as explanations of the Holy Mother's dark skin, including Ian Begg's ludicrous Mary lived in a hot climate and would have been very sunburnt, or it illuminates just how far many writers on the Black Madonna are willing to stretch credulity, meaning they're willing to lie. They are willing to lie, or what we use in our modern terminology, spin. Back then they spent the information, and even now to this day they spend the information. I have a clip that I'm going to play for you of a Caucasian speaking to one of our brothers that's actually talking on the matter of Jesus the Christ and all of that. Listen to this, and then we'll be back in a sec.
Now that you have everyone's attention, and you also have said that violence is sometimes necessary in these situations. What exactly is it that you hope to achieve through violence?
Wow, it's interesting that you would pose that question like that, because this country is built upon violence. What was the American Revolution? What's our diplomacy across the globe? We go in and we blow up countries and we replace their leaders with leaders who we like. So for any American to accuse us of being violent, it's extremely hypocritical. Now, when we talk about violence, we talk about using self-defense why are you screaming and not allowing me to talk, ma'am? You asked me a question, allow me to answer. I'm in the process of answering, and I won't be that much longer.
I'm listening.
Okay? You asked what we hope to achieve. We're talking about self-defense. We're talking about 4 or 5 police officers choking someone to death, and someone from the community having the training to intervene effectively. We're talking about saving lives. Nobody's talking about ambushing police officers. We're talking about protecting lives. And there's nothing more American than that. And when we talk about uplifting and upholding the Second Amendment, I think that you should be applauding me, seeing as though you guys are huge supporters of the Second Amendment. But it seems to be the hypocrisy of America that when black people start talking about arming themselves and defending themselves, the talk is violence. But when white people grab assault rifles and go to our nation's, their state's capitals, it's all good.
All right. First of all, I've never talked about my stance on the Second Amendment. That's I'm not criticizing you or praising you.
You don't support the Second Amendment? You don't support the Second Amendment?
That's not my role here to talk about my opinion.
I'm asking you a question. Do you support the Second Amendment?
The Second Amendment is part of our Constitution.
Amendment, yes or no? A lot of your viewers would like to know if you support the Second Amendment.
That's fine. But that's not why we're here. And the only reason that I posed that first question to you the way that I did was that I watched you, talking on a bunch of different interviews today. And you said, burn it down. You said, burn it down. It's time. So that makes me think that you want to burn it down.
I said if this country doesn't give us what we want, then we will burn down this system and replace it. All right, and I could be speaking figuratively. Okay. I could be speaking literally. It's a matter of interpretation. Like, let's be very real. And let's observe the history of the 1960s. When black people were rioting, we had the highest growth in wealth, in property ownership. Think about the last few weeks. Since we started protesting, there have been 8 cops fired across the country. You remember they were telling us that there was due process. That's why the cop that choked Eric Gardner to death had kept his job and received raises for 5 years. Anytime a cop hurt a woman, hurt a child, hurt pregnant people, hurt our elders, there was always a call for due process. You must wait. You must wait. But the moment people start destroying property, now cops can be fired automatically. What is this country rewarding? What behavior is it listening to? Obviously not marching, but when people get aggressive and they escalate their protests, the country
like
listens.
That's when you're getting
cops
results.
get fired. Now you have police officers, you have Republican politicians talking about police reform. I don't condone nor do I condemn rioting, but I'm just telling you what I observed.
You're saying that that's what appears to be working and getting results right now, and maybe that is something for everybody to think about. I just want to put up this quote from Martin Luther King, and I've heard you talk about Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X, and you said that he, was an anomaly, Martin Luther King. He said, "Let us be dissatisfied until that day when nobody will shout white power, when nobody will shout black power, but everybody will talk about God's power and human power." Do you agree with that?
I love the Lord. And my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, is the most famous black radical revolutionary in history. And he was treated just like Dr. King. He was arrested on occasion, and he was also crucified or assassinated. This is what happens to black activists. We are killed by the government. Well, and if you need context, if you read your Bible, it will say that Jesus had feet like burnt brass and hair like wool. I don't know if you noticed, but our hair seems to be more like wool, and we seem to be likened to that color than anyone else. And, it's just the hypocrisy and the white supremacy in America and in the world that would show us portraits of a pasty white Jesus. Jesus was not white. We all know this.
Okay. I think Jesus is Jesus to all Christians, and people interpret him in imagery in different ways. Obviously, he was from the Middle East. We all know that. That's obvious. So
he wasn't a white man. We all know that, right?
I don't know how. I don't
we all know
see
Jesus
how.
wasn't
He was
white,
Middle
right?
Eastern. Yes, he was Middle East. Yeah. All right, we're gonna go. Thank you very much. I appreciate where you're coming from, and I appreciate you coming on tonight. And I know you're very passionate, and that you want what's best. So everybody has different aims and different ways to get there, but I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us.
I just want black liberation and black sovereignty.
Thank you very much.
So there you have it, folks. This man thoroughly checked with all magnanimous, gracious fortitude this woman about how Christ is literally a black man in the Bible. And look at the disillusion. She started to stutter. She started to well, everyone knows that he's Middle Eastern. Well, that shows you that no matter how much evidence, no matter how much facts, even from back then to now, there's still the disillusionment, there's still the spin, there's still the lies. We know the truth. Everyone knows now that Christ is black. Because we know that Christ is black, the only conclusion that one may make is that the original Jews of the Bible, the Hebrews, are black. So, with this information being exposed to the forefront, the fear of black boys, the fear of black men, the fear of a black messiah, a fear of black art can readily be seen, because they don't want you to know that the people that they enslaved are literally God's chosen people, because this will turn the whole world upside down, that a global slave trade was perpetrated on God's chosen people. If that's the case, then guess what? Somebody's in trouble. I'm Raphael Levi Israel. Thank you for listening to The Forefront Radio, where the truth does not fear investigation. Stay tuned, listen to a few songs, and we hope you enjoyed this show. Have a good day, and may the Most High be with you.
everything. All this time just wasted thinking I own anything. Humility clothes me from the top of my head, soles of my feet, yeah. Teach me, teach me, show me the way. Hide my face from the wickedness of this world, I pray. Take my hand, protect my heart, hide me in the shadow of your wing. Like a child, see purity in my eyes. Allow me to sit at your feet. Hear me, hear me. Show me your ways, teach me your paths. I'm yielding to your will. Your loving commitment will endow me, surround me in my coming and my going. Cleanse me, purge me, I want to be white as snow, so I may testify of your love to those in search of you. Show me the way. You desire truth, the inward parts you make me know you. Take my hand, casting all my cares, refresh me with the waters of life. Like a child crying softly, forgive me. Allow me to approach your throne. Know me, yeah. Know me. Have mercy upon me, O Elohim, according to your loving kindness. According unto the multitude of your tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you, you only, have I sinned, and done this evil in your sight, that you might be justified when you speak, and be clear when you judge. Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, you desire truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part you shall make me to know wisdom. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Make me to hear joy and gladness, that the bones which you have broken may rejoice. Hide your face from my sins, and blot out all mine iniquities. Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from your presence, and take not your Holy Spirit from me. Restore unto me the joy of your salvation, and uphold me with your free spirit. Then will I teach transgressors your ways, and sinners shall be converted unto you. Deliver me from blood guiltiness, O Elohim, the Elohim of my salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud of your righteousness. O Yahuwah, open up my lips, and my mouth shall show forth your praise. For you desire not sacrifice, else I would give it. You delight not in burnt offering. The sacrifices of Elohim are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart. O Elohim, you will not despise. Do good in your good pleasure unto Zion. Build you the walls of Jerusalem. Then shall you be pleased with the sacrifices of righteousness, with burnt offering and whole burnt offering. Then shall they offer bullocks upon thine altar.
You're going to realize, I'm going to say something. A lot of times, our people don't like to connect the dots. You could say you're a Muslim all day. Don't nobody give a damn about that. You could say you are of the Kemetic community. Don't nobody give a damn about that either. You could say you are Egyptologist. Don't nobody give a daggone. You can say you're a Christian. You can say you're a Rastafari. Don't nobody care. But the second you say you're an Israelite, the true Hebrews, now all hell breaks loose. Because that's the problem. You got to connect. What is the connection between Deshaun Jackson and Nick Cannon? What did they say that got them in hot water? It ain't that the white man was a savage. It ain't that we are the originators of all things. That's that bull crap. That's jailhouse talk. It's by them both saying we are the true Hebrews. We are the children of Israel. Now they catch hell. You better, Negroes, you better learn to connect the dots. It ain't no problem. All of the stupid things you're in, there's no problem. You can say it till you're blue in the face. But the second you talk about the Bible, and then we're the people of the book, now there's the problem. So now there's the problem.
Judah.
Heaven is right here with you. Heaven is right here with you.
Yeah.
Heaven is right here with you.
Okay.
Heaven is right here with you.
I'ma speak to him. Yo. The
Purchase
preacher.
your tracks today.
Everything written. It's written for learning. Who's you gonna believe it? What a God only false prophet.
Another one.
Know your history, yeah. Know what you're saying to me. Same people like thee can't teach you about God. Never trust. A system that will always be broken. Cause they hate. Yeah, they hate, cause they hate us.
When the sun comes down, so does their understanding. Whether it's Christ, bright light, or the one commandment. Our eyes water for the horror sure have caused wealth. They yet fail, plus we're caught up on in vain help. We lost hope, our shepherds soft spoke. They scoff quotes, misinterpreting in soft cloaks. Off scope, with reproach and they dose. Somebody tell a modern Christian that their cross broke. Of whom do their households take counsel? What amounts when the counts melt doubtful? Why they cover with the coverings of other things? They love sin and will discover it ain't of the king. The plan was basic for the band who once had rain plantations. Tell them man is glamorous and man is handsome naked. Plant their hatred, cancel patience, amputate their nation. The clan that ran the races handed famous lamentations.
Everything written, it's written for learning. Who you gonna believe it? What if God only false prophet? Yes. Know your history, yeah. Know your enemy. Same moves like these can't teach you about God. Never trust. A system that will always be broken. Cause they hate us. Yeah, they hate cause they hate us. Never trust. A system that will always be broken. Cause they hate us. Yeah, they hate cause they hate Lord, I'm yearning. Pages be turning, flipping through scriptures. Comfort, I'm searching. Things before time written for learning. Patiently waiting, salvation, I'm searching. Bible, I'm burning. Sinners gon' purge them. Take away oppression like a dream turning. Better wake up, high time that you're learning. Black man coming like a boogie when you owe him. 4th of July, Christmas is lies, Easter is lies, pagan surprise. Proof in the pudding, religion is doodoo. Is worse than a voodoo, criminal Zulu. Better realize that Christ ain't white. All these lies gonna die. For the laws that they despise. Forrest Gump gonna die. Trumped up charges, basking in barges, basking in robbers. 31 flavors and targets. Lamentations, we were in vain for a nation that got problems to solve them, absolve them. Washington guy, we on the rise, they in decline, honoring cycle. They got the nerve to swear on the Bible? Right. Never trust. A system that will always be broken. Cause they hate us. Yeah, they hate cause they hate us. Moses and Christ, they gave the law and grace to keep you from sinning so hard. The things before were written afore time that we could learn through all. Patience and comfort we have the scripts to keep you alive away from sin. But we rebelled, now suffering, and slavery is the price we get. Our women, our children, taken on ships, murdered by enemies, chains and whips. They changed our name from fame to shame. Hebrew to English, the Spanish came. The Nina, the Pinta, the Pilgrims came. Slaughtered our people, Indian names. Gave us religion from cradle to grave. Stuck in idolatry, Caesar Borgia. Babel to Babel is Babylon. America singing the same old song. Put us in chains, then say we're free. Destroy our minds through slavery. The curses in Deuteronomy. The Bible is just our history. The truth someday will set you free. My people, you have to set your mind free.
You've done so much for me, I cannot tell it all. If I had 10,000 tongues, it still won't be enough. When you heal completely. Chukun marobimo isi ikendule narekelemo. What shall I render to Jehovah? For he has done so very much for me. What shall I render to Jehovah? For he has done so very much for me. Nara, nara, he, narekele, narekele mo. Nara, nara, he, narekele, narekele mo. Wajabu, Yesu wajabu, wajabu, mfalme wajabu. Nikiona vitu ulivyoumba, vyaonyesha kuwa nguvu zako. Fadhili ulizo nazo kwangu ni za ajabu. Oh, nara, nara, he, narekele, narekele mo. Oh, nara, nara, he, narekele, narekele mo.
Thank you for listening to the Forefront Radio. We now have a Cash App. The link is in the description of the page here on anchor.fm, also on Spotify. We appreciate you listening in. We do have a few features that we are including now. We are selling a few products such as watches, perfumes, colognes, and other products will be available for our Israelite community as well as the general community of the population. We have a Facebook page. Just type in the Forefront Media and you'll be able to get updates of various shows that we drop when they do drop. Please do share this show if you like the show, and we do hope that you do love this show. And tune in for more episodes once we have them available. Thank you for listening to The Forefront. I'm your host, Afiel Levi Israel.